viewpoints, statements, or beliefs expressed on the following program by the host, guests, or callers are not necessarily the opinions of FantasyAccess.com, Media Group Inc. ownership, management, sponsors, or website. Keep fans. Time for the best insight of your favorite team with insider Ira Winderman, exclusively on the Big O Radio Show. It's the Acura of Pembroke Pines, Miami Heat and NBA report. Here's Ira Winderman.
All righty, there he is, ready to go and rock and roll. How you doing, Ira? Are you? Did you have a good messy weekend?
You know, that was incredible. That was incredible. I didn't even know. One, maybe Big O, you can explain to me because I didn't really see it anywhere. Why didn't they go to extra time? Why, if it's a tournament format, weren't there the two 15-minute extra periods without the golden goal like we've seen in every other tournament? Because
you're in the middle of a regular season, and they also have the U.S. Open going on at the same time. So they play on Wednesday against Cincinnati. So when you have these things all bunched up, you can't play golden goal, because if you do that, you could be playing forever, and then you're burning legs out, and the Mexican teams have to go back to Mexico and play their season, and the Americans have to play their season. Now, in this case, it was two MLS teams because Monterrey didn't make it, but still they have to return, and one of them has to play in the U.S. Open. The other one doesn't. So it's just one of those things where I think they didn't want to make it. They don't really play a lot of golden goal, man. There's not a lot of.
I understand not golden goal. Usually they play the extra periods. It was a game with such heft and such meaning. But when I saw the two goaltenders lined up against each other, and you reach round 11 like that, and unless I'm wrong, Big O, if it would have continued, they would have reverted to the previous order, and it would have been Messi again, correct?
Actually, I think they go to the bench.
They go to guys who weren't in the game? You see, that's what I want to know. That's why I watch the Big O show here on YouTube.
I think they go to the bench after that.
I would have been curious if they went back the other way, but just to see goalie on goalie crime and the way it played out there, there has not been a better advertisement for soccer in the United States probably since the North American Soccer League and Pele. Yeah,
lived it like I did. I mean, I went to the games. So, yeah, that was the last time, except the difference is the league wasn't as advanced. Soccer wasn't as advanced in our country at that point. And so now it's actually at a place where it can really grow. My Lord, we have 30 teams, dude. I mean, Jesus Christ, what more do you need? The sport is surviving and thriving, but you have to take that next step because we're not stupid, bro. We know what great talent is, and you got to start bringing it over. And hopefully this is the beginning of more talent coming over, because I'm sure these other teams eventually, Eagles will step in, and these owners are going to say, well, I got to go get my own star, and I got to go get my own star, and that's kind of what you're hoping for as we date ourselves. What was it, the Breck shampoo or whatever it is, and you tell two friends, and so on and so on. I don't know what. I forgot.
That's actually interesting. I got it because you actually said I thought you were going to say something else. I turned to my wife during the game, and I said to her, because similar to the words you just mentioned, Breck shampoo, I said, remember when Breck Shea was a thing on this team, when they were playing at that level of player, right? And honestly, Big O, we were talking one season ago where we were talking these journeyman MLS players who were washed up U.S. college players, and now you see such a completely different level of team, even Fafa and what he got accomplished in scoring that goal and sending it to to PKs. Yeah, the level is it's crazy, Big O. Think about you and I, we were back up there on Commercial Boulevard last year watching such a different level of play. It literally is, if this is Major League Soccer, what were we watching last year with this team? God bless Higuaín and his brother. We were watching like single A soccer. We're watching double A soccer. The difference has been huge, and I do hope they maintain. I agree.
Hell, I was watching Fafa Picoult at Miami FC before he got to the MLS, actually. So it was actually cool to see him. I hated that he scored against us, but still, it was cool to see Fafa Picoult in the MLS. I mean, this whole thing has just been absolutely phenomenal, dude. It gives us something to look forward to now in the summers, and now they got the U.S. Open Cup left. So now they've got Cincinnati on Wednesday. And then Houston and Real Salt Lake are playing at 9:30 on Wednesday. So winners will advance, and they got a chance to add even more hardware. So that's going to be, and if they somehow can run a table almost and get into the playoffs,
they could. But Big O, you're talking about a whole bunch of things, and you know what? You can clarify. I hate to take so much time out of our Acura Pembroke Pines Heat report here, but is Messi going to play the turf games? Are we still sure?
Yeah, he said it already. He said he will.
And I'm sure, but again, remember, he hasn't played on turf. I want to see him after the first turf game, because if they get to the playoffs, there's going to be a bunch, obviously, of the road games and a bunch of turf games. So I am curious how that plays out.
Yeah, some tells me the league soon will have no more turf. So I'm just, there's just, they got surprised this year, but some tells me in the offseason, a couple of the teams that are left with turf, because there's only a couple, they'll be changing their ways. I don't know, it's some
which will prove that Messi can really move the earth. Yeah, if he does that. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So before we start on the Heat,
okay,
what's this? Is this the same thing as the NBA saying, okay, listen, make sure you don't say where you want to go now, okay, Lillard? All right, we did our investigation. So what's this investigation into the Harden and Morey mess?
This is different because James Harden is indicating that he was told if he took less money so they could add Daniel House and PJ Tucker from the Heat last summer, a year ago, that he would get taken care of now, which you cannot do. You cannot talk about a future cap when dealing with your current cap. The Minnesota Timberwolves did this at one point with Joe Smith. They were not allowed to retain him. He had to go to Detroit. They lost a bunch of first-round picks. They were penalized. So if Daryl Morey told James Harden, if he told him, hey, take less money now, we'll make it up to you in the back end, you can't do that. It would be like Mickey Harrison telling a player, take less now, we'll give you your ownership stake later. You'll get made whole. You can't do that. Matter of fact, to get back to our soccer talk,
it's like telling Beno Udre, we'll take care of you later.
Right, exactly. Bring it back for another year. And you know what? Or it's even like, honestly, the same InterMiami ownership did when they bent the rules and got creative when they were trying to fast track this whole thing.
5 DPs?
Yeah. So when you lose that, so I think the league will. And here's the deal. You can make a wink deal with someone who's all in, who's part of the club. I think Harden would love to expose Daryl Morey. If Harden doesn't get what he wants, I could see Harden coming out with an interview. All I know is when I signed my deal last year and took a $14 million pay cut, they guaranteed me, and here's the paperwork, here's the email, here's the voicemail.
You got to have the proof. Yeah, you got to have the proof.
And then it'll get interesting. And hanging in the balance in all of this is Joel Embiid, who went through the process, who put up with that tough loss when Kawhi shot, hit the rim, went in the three-pointer for Toronto. And you got to figure he said, hey, I have had enough of this place. That's going to move everything. That's what I wrote in the Sun Sentinel this morning in Ask Ira. I think James Harden is convoluted in the Heat situation because he's adding another level of drama out there that no one knows how it's going to turn. James Harden, for what he has not accomplished playoff-wise, it's remarkable the impact he's had in the league. I had no issue last summer with Kevin Durant. He won his championship in Golden State. He got his ring. He proved dynamic. James Harden is a great regular season player. And Orlando Alzugaray, what does the regular season mean in the NBA?
Nothing whatsoever. Yes. And by the way, Durant not only proved, but he was the best player on the best team at that moment when they won those titles.
Even ahead of Steph, yeah.
Right. That shows you, Durant, that he stepped up in the big moment and became the best player on the team. Lord, why did you leave that place, Kevin Durant? Jesus Christ, your ego just really, God bless, dude. Just enjoy where you're at, man. How many more titles could they have had by now? If he actually,
they look like the invincible team and probably could have withstood the Klay Thompson injury if you still had KD. And you know what else, Big O? It would have elongated Steph Curry's career, because he wouldn't have had to be so ball dominant. So maybe instead of lasting to 36, he could last to 40. He could play on LeBron-like. Instead, the pressure on Steph the last few years, as they dealt with the craziness of Draymond and the injuries of Klay, have really maybe compromised him as well. But there is no greater ego sport, maybe soccer, than the NBA. I mean, soccer, you have Ronaldo who's going to Saudi Arabia. It's kind of interesting. Matter of fact, I hate to keep coming back to this.
Kind of about
Messi,
the same. Yeah.
yeah,
like
Messi
that.
has increased world soccer interest by coming to the U.S. Big O, you follow soccer. I follow soccer. When's the last you've heard of Ronaldo? It's like he's disappeared, right?
Yeah.
Cristiano Ronaldo. It's like, okay, he took his $1 billion. Mbappe was thinking the same thing. But eventually, it's a point, do you want to grow your sport or do you want to go with your ego? Kevin Durant went with his ego. James Harden is going with his ego. Kyrie Irving is only about his ego. What if he didn't leave Cleveland and force his way to Boston? This is the ego league right here.
Yeah, no, there's no doubt. And the difference when you go to Saudi Arabia, you're really just solely going for money.
Yes,
Because
selling out.
the world doesn't really care, want to be in Saudi Arabia, want to support Saudi Arabia in a way. Whereas in America, everybody wants to either visit, come to America, live in America. So then you come to play in America. Now the interest comes, a lot more. So you're going to get way
and worldwide, yeah.
than you are going to Saudi Arabia. Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. All right, so when Spo was telling you that Bam, Butler, and Hero make a great trio, did you watch his nose grow?
No, and I'm the opposite, Big O, because I know how this game is played, as do you. And I said my respect grew for Eric Spoelstra, that he knows how to play this game. And if you've noticed, last night, Tyler put out video on his Instagram. Sean could probably drag it up later. It showed Tyler was at the Heat's gym on the practice court getting shots up. The Heat have to reunify for now. Portland is forcing that. They very well may go into the season with Tyler Hero. So the Miami Heat are saying all the right things. Tyler went and did his camp yesterday in Deerfield Beach, held his event, said, look, I'm not going to talk about this stuff. I don't control it, so I'm not the voice to deal with it, but I'm going to move on with it. Spo did the perfect thing right there. And you know what? The Heat gave Tyler guaranteed $120 million over 4 years. They did right by him also. And again, the only players, and I know this, that they have offered, actually physically offered Tyler Hero for, have been Kevin Durant and Damian Lillard. Well, you can do a lot worse in your career than being offered for those two. Yes, there was Donovan Mitchell talking to other players, but at no point did the Heat express to the other team, okay, let's talk turkey. We're going to put Tyler Hero in the deal. Yes, for Kevin Durant. Yes, to the Nets last summer. Yes, for Damian Lillard this summer. Now they sit back and wait. But yeah, you're seeing this subtle re-embrace. And you know this about the Heat. Like you said, you might think
but I give everybody credit, by the way.
Yes.
They're all acting like pros.
That's what I was going to say.
Like pros. And by the way, just for you folks out there, you can't have it both ways. Plenty of players say, oh, I'm staying because they want to get their Larry Bird money. And once they get their Larry Bird money, then they say, I'm no longer happy. Now I want to go somewhere else so they can take their Larry Bird money with them. So the Heat gave him his Larry Bird money. And if they need to move him like they had to move Rice for Zoe or Butler and Odom for Shaq, it is what it is, dude. You got to move what you got to move. But it goes both ways. Everybody got what they wanted. You wanted your money, right? You got your money. This is kind of part of the game, unfortunately.
You know what? And I think the most sort of tenuous spot in the NBA, to be honest with you, is being the number 3 guy. The number 2s get taken care of. You know what, Big O? I know you hate to refer back to this, but I'll almost relate it to you in terms of terrestrial radio. A lot of times when you had a strong sports station, the AM drive and the PM drive guys were the guys. And if you know this, and if you were stuck in the middle at that 10 to 2 or 2 to 4 day part, hey, you know what? We're cutting. We've all dealt with that. You deal with that. It's the same thing in the NBA. Even with the Warriors, they've said, okay, our guys are Steph and Clay. And we've heard a lot of Draymond speculation over the years. Chris Bosh put up with it. Kevin Love put up with it. If it didn't work in the Heat's big 3 with Wade, Bosh, and LeBron, Bosh was going to be the odd man out. That was obvious. That's what happens when you're the 3rd guy in a big 3. You wind up in that tenuous position. You sometimes feel uncomfortable. The difference is Tyler got paid. The Miami Heat took care of a player with a substantial contract and said, hey, you might wind up in Sacramento or in Utah, somewhere where you don't want to be, but we got a big wheelbarrow of money that's going to follow you around, that's going to allay that to a degree also. Tyler's been a professional. Yes, some people might say, hey, He's not mentioning Heat on his Instagram as much, but he's also staying out of the fray. Hell, this weekend, Damian Lillard unfollowed the Blazers on his Instagram. Now, that's a shot. That's obvious you don't want to be somewhere. Big O, you and Sean, through the next few hours of your show, the rest of the week, dig up one case where you can show me that Tyler Hero has denigrated the Heat, or has said, I've had enough and I want out. He hasn't.
Well, he did take off his Heat stuff off his.
No, and I want to clarify that. Thank you for bringing that up.
Or whatever he took.
What happened was on especially he mentioned that was early in the season, but more recently he did an advertisement for his camp, and a lot of people have pointed out, wait, there's no Heat logo on his jersey, and if it's a private camp, you can't do that also. So I think when it came to the most recent case, it was just a matter he held his camp. He has done plenty of Heat-related stuff in recent weeks. It's a tough position. He realizes that. Spo realizes that. Pat realizes that. Andy realizes that. But you know what? He's working with Heat coaches. He's working with Chris Quinn. He's got back in the gym. He'll be a good player somewhere. And you know what?
It doesn't help him to be a dick.
Yes.
It doesn't help him at all to be a dick.
Look at James Harden. Perfect example. Yes. Do you want that reputation? Tyler Hero at 21 years old has a lot of NBA years left, and Big O, a lot of endorsement years left. How do you want to be perceived going forward? Same thing with Dame Lillard. Staying out of the fray. He held his camp over the weekend in Phoenix. He mentioned how he respects the Suns. He didn't mention anything about this. Staying above it all is what you've got to do. Again, camp opens October 3rd. We have plenty of time still. It can still play out. If not, the Heat don't have a terrible team. They'll just have a more difficult road against an East that looks improved.
Yeah, and listen, you act cool. Even the Heat will be the bad guy in the whole thing. And they're all right with that because
that's what they are.
That's part of the game. That's all right. But in your case, you got nothing to gain from it. I commend him overall. I commend everybody for acting professional throughout this whole thing because this is all part of it. Caron Butler and Lamar Odom didn't want to leave. Glenn Rice sees Pat Riley get here. You think he wants to really leave? No, but what are you going to do, bro? Right. Certain players become available. You're going to turn down Alonzo Mourning? No, of course not, dude. You got a shot to bring Alonzo Mourning? You bring Alonzo Mourning. You know what I'm saying? It's just, it's just one of those things. You got to do what you got to do, unfortunately. Outside of that, the moves that they've made also, and some of the guys they added on the periphery, you almost feel like they're kind of ready for this, aren't they?
They're dealing with roster A and roster B. Roster A, hey, we get Lillard, we're taking off to the top. But roster B, hey, we've covered our bases. Yes, Max and Gabe were too expensive. Our thoughts for what they got elsewhere. We wish them well. We brought in Thomas Bryant. We brought in Josh Richardson. Here's what I thought was interesting in Eric Spoelstra's comments last week, Big O. He mentioned his core. He didn't mention Kyle Lowry. All season, he's talked about point guard 1, PG 1, their quarterback. Here's a guy who's going to be the third highest paid player on the team this coming season. I think that's still an area at point guard where there are questions. Matter of fact, I put it this way. The Heat are probably more wed to Tyler Hero as a component going forward than Kyle Lowry. I think Kyle Lowry's sort of wearing that bubble of expiring contract. That worst case scenario, we let him play out his $30 million in his last year of his contract. He's an expiring contract. So I think what Spo was saying when he pointed to the core of Jimmy and Bam and Tyler is he's saying, these are the guys I know I'm going to have to ride. I think the Kyle Lowry thing will be really interesting how it plays out. Remember, he was not a starting point guard at the end of last season. Can you bring him back now at 37 and feel comfortable that, hey, if there is no Lillard, we can ride him? I think it's going to be interesting. It'll be interesting to see the time Jaime Jaquez gets, whether Josh Richardson handles more, Jimmy handles more, or Tyler as your starting point guard.
So who's the backup point guard?
Right now, it's looking like Kyle's the backup point guard and Tyler's the starting point guard. And here's where they're going to have to make a decision.
The trade happens. I'm talking about reality. Right. When the trade happens and everybody's gone and Dame's here, who's his backup now?
Well, you put out the Ish Smith alarm, obviously. I mean, it's going to be some NBA veteran guy. Because let's be honest, Big O. If you have Damian Lillard, who is a minute eater, and you have Jimmy who can handle and Bam who can handle, you have enough that a lot of times when Lillard goes out of the game, someone else besides a point guard, maybe Josh Richardson, Jaime Jaquez, are going to wind up handling anyway. So yes, you're right. There is no true backup point guard. That's why with their two-way contracts, they kept Drew Smith and they kept Jeremy Bouye. So they have that level of, it's interesting. They'll have a starting point guard in Lillard, a third string point guard in Bouye, and then they'll see what happens. But likely in a Lillard deal, more go out.
I know you were screwing around with Ish Smith, but who's the best street free agent veteran point guard available?
There really is not much out there right now, but it could also be a third string point guard in another team that is not going to get playing time, that wants out, that sees the Heat as an opportunity, that takes a buyout. So invariably someone will come free. And I think if Damian Lillard's here with the other ball handlers, I don't think backup point guard will be that important. And I do think that Lillard will arrive with a purpose.
Well, let me slow you down there a little bit. Lillard does have a little bit of an injury history. He does miss some games, okay? He's not a big injury guy,
right?
But he does get nicked up a little bit, misses a couple of games. That's why I asked you, because I think it actually is going to be a necessity. Now, here's the thing that you and I know, Ira. These guys already explored. They must have already. They must have
absolutely.
They must have 3 or 4 teams targeted that is 3 deep at point guard. And they've got the fast dialer ready to go the second that trade is made. I'm not saying that it's already set before, because they can't do that. They'd be giving shit away. But I'm pretty sure they're probably targeting a couple teams that are they probably know they would be willing to move that third point guard.
There's an entire folder. There is a folder on Pat Riley and Andy Ellisberg's desk. If we make the Lillard trade, push the previous plan A here. Let's open our binder for plan B. Let's restructure our roster. When you had a player that major, you had all the pieces. Perfect example, when they got LeBron, they said, you know what? Mike Miller, perfect fit. Buy B's. We'll make it work. We'll get someone else. Then they realized, you know what? Birdman Anderson, Ray Allen, Shane Battier. Yeah. When you make a dramatic move, there will be those ancillary moves. They were great with that in the Big Three era. They could do it again. Or else, I mean, in all facetiousness, maybe not. There always is the, hey, Goran, come on back down. He is out there. You know what? If Damian Lillard misses,
he's available right now.
Oh, he wants to be here. But
I know he wants to be here, but I wasn't sure if he was even. I haven't even looked into the free agents at point guard.
Oh no, he is available. Yeah, he ended last season with Milwaukee when they lost to the Heat. He spoke to myself. He spoke to Anthony Chang, Barry Jackson. He said he'd love to finish it here. You know what? If Dame misses 12 games, you can do worse than a guy who knows the system, who's not going to be a problem, who's going to carry a smile, and will get at least 5 teeth knocked out during the course of the season.
Great practice player, a professional on the bench. Yes. Ready when you call him. Oh, I think that's actually kind of the ideal person. That's the kind of individual that you need to play that third point guard spot on the team. Okay, I like that. All right, what do you got going on in the Sun Sentinel so folks can check you out?
Going to get Eric Spoelstra later this week. Talk about the U.S. begins play at the World Cup on Friday. They're playing in the Philippines, so we're going to talk about their game, what he's doing, working with Steve Kerr, getting a look at the Heat roster also. So we're moving closer to that September period. You saw it with Tyler last night when players start getting back in the gym, and we get a much better sense of where this is going while you're on hold. So again, plan A now, maybe plan B later. But the one thing about the Heat, they're not going to get caught in the wind like other teams. I don't know who the hell's going to be on the Sixers this year. They're stuck. The Heat are moving ahead with what they have. Something else happens dramatic. Hey, like Big O, they made that trade for Alonzo Mourning on the eve of the season. You remember it was like 2 or 3 days before they started when they did that. Pat Riley's not afraid to wait till later. So the Heat are moving ahead with plan A. We're going to chronicle that with Spo. Understanding plan B could be around the corner. Absolutely.
Follow him on Twitter at Ira Heatbeat. More importantly, please subscribe to the South Florida Sun Sentinel like I and many others do. Ira, we will catch up next week, sir. Have a great week.
Catch you next time in our Acura Pembroke Pines report. Thanks, Big O.
You've been listening to the Acura of Pembroke Pines Miami Heat and NBA report with Ira Winderman. When you're looking for award-winning service and great deals from the #1 volume Acura sales dealership in the Southeast United States, you go to Craig's Inn Acura of Pembroke Pines at 15601 Pines Boulevard in Pembroke Pines.